Just going over directions, make sure everything is good.
Santina, I am going to email the directions to you right now. Okay. Okay, Maria, it's about 4 after, so we can get started.
Okay.
If anyone comes in late or if you need to rewatch any section, we are recording this. So this will be available on our YouTube station after. The shortcut to that is mcpl.tv. So if you feel like you need to rewatch or you want to make another one after, that is an option for you. And I will be here throughout the program. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. My name is Amber Gagliardi. You've got an email from me. And if you need anything, let me know. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning. Okay, so it is a lovely day out. So thank you for coming in and spending some time with us and, you know, going through this project, which is actually awesome. I love it. This is my sample piece. I made this for Thanksgiving. So in your instructions, you might have seen that, you know, we asked you to cut your strips or have your scraps ready just to save a little bit of time. But I used 14 strips of 2 inches by 13.5. And that's generally what I would suggest for a table runner, since you'd want it to be a little bit on the thinner side. But you know, this is what it is. So I chose very fall, very, you know, cute patterns for my runner. And I'm actually thinking of doing this for some placemats and maybe some, you know, pot holders, because I liked it so much. And then in the back, I just chose a plain old fabric that I thought would coordinate well with the project. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. You should all have your scraps ready. And I actually chose for our demo today some holiday patterns, which I loved. I got them all at Joann's. And they're super cute. There's like, you know, there's some shimmery ones, some plain ones. And for my backing, I chose something more whimsical, more fun, more, you know, Christmassy. So it's up to you. The best thing about this project is that you can do it for literally any holiday, any occasion, and it's going to come out beautiful. And you can make matching anything, pot holders, like I said, placemats, things of that nature. And you can customize it to make it as long as you want or as short as you want. So basically what I mean by that is you just need more pieces of scraps so you can, you know, make it longer. But all right, so here we go. Let's get started. All right, so we have right now ready for our project about 14 to 16 strips of whatever fabric you're using that you chose. And they're going to be cut in 2-inch by 13.5 or 13 inches. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of it is going to get cut off anyway when we straighten out our edges at the end. So we have that. We also have the backing. Like I said, I chose something more whimsical. And this guy is cut to 24 inches by 12.5. Okay, so that's that. And then you're going to have a matching piece of your batting. So your batting might be of natural fibers. It might be synthetic. It doesn't really matter which one you chose. Some of it might have an iron-on component to it. You can certainly use that one as well. If you like a stiffer type of table runner or project, you can definitely choose to do something a little bit more stiffer. But for now, I just used a regular batting, flexible. It's cotton, and I cut it to 24 inches by 12.5. So our first step is I put there as some ironing and, pressing all of your fabrics, which I already did. You can feel free to do that right now or not. But what we're going to do is basically just match the fabric as best as possible to the batting. Okay. So, and like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see, my piece of fabric is a little bit bigger than my batting, which is okay. At the end, I'm going to go ahead and straighten that out. If your batting has a sticky component to it, what I would suggest at this point is to go ahead and press on a low heat setting your batting and your cotton fabric, so it just adheres to it. If you do not have something with a sticky back to it, you can just use a lapel stick or a glue stick and go ahead and just lightly go over your batting so it gets a little bit sticky and it adheres to your fabric a little bit. Okay, we don't want it to be obviously like permanently stuck, but it's going to allow it as we sew that it doesn't shift very much. So as you can see, I'm just using a regular glue stick and it's going to be nice in place. So you can just go ahead and straighten it out with your hands. And then we get to the fun part. So this is the part where we're going to start the quilting process. So here I'm just going to turn to the wrong side and I have my batting exposed. Now, I do recommend to have maybe 3 patterns, including a solid, just because it can get a little bit busy when you start playing around with a lot of different patterns. But whatever you choose is going to turn out beautiful. So we're going to start with one piece of your choosing, and we're going to try to see, where the middle is. So for me, the middle is right here. I'm going to start with that. And then I'm going to start laying out the pattern that I want for my project. So let's see, I want to have maybe, no, I don't like that one there. So let's see, and you can all just be as creative as you want. If you have shorter pieces than others, that's okay. I think I like this. Okay, and right now what we're just doing is just laying out our pattern. So when we start sewing, we know exactly how it's going to go and you don't have to, kind of scramble for it. Okay. Let's see. I like this piece better. All right. Wonderful. And I'm going to add this one here, and this one here. Okay, so I'm done placing my pieces. If you're still working on that, go ahead. But I'm going to put mine away. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. And yeah, so for this particular project or any other project, I do always recommend for you to prep your fabric by washing, drying, and you know, ironing, and that really helps in any project that you do, just because it reduces the shrinkage, and when you are done with it, it's not going to look wonky, and it's going to be the size that you originally intended it to be. So, all right, with my strips all laid out, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start piling my strips. So I'm going to go from the middle that I assigned. I'm going to put this as my middle marker so you guys know. This is my middle marker, and I'm going to just start piling them on. So this is my last strip. I'm going to go that one, that way. So you're going to go backwards from how you laid it on. Okay, same thing on the other side. So you're going to go like that. Okay, and now you're going to just make a right side and a left side pile. Okay, so I'm going to leave my left side right to my left, and I'm going to leave my right side to my right. So we're going to leave our middle strip right there. And what we're going to start doing is we're going to start piecing our table running together. So if you have fabric that has pattern on it, we're going to want to basically put, and I'll show you right now, we're going to put right sides together. Okay, and the way you can know what your right side is for instance, this is the pattern side. The wrong side is going to be the one that's dull and it doesn't show your, and it doesn't show your pattern. So this is the right side and this is the wrong side. Okay, so we're going to put our fabrics right sides together like so. You're going to match them as best as you can. Okay, and then we're going to go to our sewing machine. Whoops, I'm wrong. See, this is why you need a pattern. Okay. And then we're going to go to our sewing machine, and we're going to go ahead and sew a straight stitch down the like a quarter seam allowance from the right side. Okay, I'm going to show you that right now. Straight stitch, it doesn't have to be anything fancy at this moment. You can use a decorative stitch to finalize your project, but for right now, I'm just using a straight stitch. And I'm going to go ahead and pin my pieces in place. Okay, just to make sure that nothing shifts on me, that nothing is going to move. All right, and it just becomes one big piece like that. Okay, and I'm going to start like so. And again, a quarter-inch seam allowance is perfectly fine. I do have a digital machine. This is my Janome, but if you are using a regular mechanical machine, that's totally okay too. Like I said, we're just using straight stitches, so nothing fancy. This is just what I have, okay? All right, let's get started. Okay. Alrighty, so we've sewn that straight down. And now we're going to go to our ironing station and we're going to press this open. So you have a nice, neat seam. I'm going to go ahead ahead and just right here. Just be careful not to get your batting, because battings sometimes melt if you are using an iron on them. So just be careful not to melt your batting, okay? So now we're gonna do the same thing for the left side, okay? So I have my left side pile, and I'm gonna go ahead and right sides together. Once again, if you have a solid fabric, it doesn't matter. It does matter with the patterned fabric, okay? And we're gonna pin it. Now you might be asking why I'm alternating sides as opposed to just doing one side and then the other. I find that when you do alternate sides, it just, the fabric tends to stay more even and it doesn't tend to like bulge, because sometimes if you do one whole side first, you might have the fabric shift, or it might bulge in a way where it's not going to turn out to be an even project. So I just like to do it this way. And here we go. And you know, I just thought of something that might be helpful. If you want to label your sides right and left for when you're sewing, you might want to do that. I just did that for myself, just so I don't get, you know, confused. But here we have it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and press that. Looks beautiful. I love it already. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for my next one. Once again, right sides together, and we're going to line it up as best as possible, pin it in place. Wonderful. Go ahead and press. Beautiful. And now we're going to go to my left side. Okay. Does anybody have any questions at this point about what we're doing, about anything? Love to answer any questions if you have them.
We don't have any questions yet, but I'll keep my eye on it.
Okie dokie. All right, we're just gonna keep going and alternating left to right. Now, another thing that you could do alternatively is go ahead and just do, okay, so you're pinning your right, and then you can go ahead and pin your left. Okay, and then just sew each and then go press, you know, so you're not going back and forth too much to the to your pressing station. So that's what I'm going to try to do right now. Okay, that's one. And here's the other. Okay, great. Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and press. Yay, this looks so nice. Okay. Right. Okay. So this is my right and this is my left. Good thing I took a look and I labeled. Okay. Wonderful. Let's keep going. Mhm. That looks wonderful. Oh, and this one I haven't sewed in yet. Mhm.
Making this look so easy.
It's a very simple project.
So yeah, you're basically just flipping it over for the wrong side, sewing it, and then just flipping it back. And it has such a neat edge. It's amazing.
Right? And people are gonna be like, how did you do that? That's so pretty. And you're gonna be like, oh, I did it myself. The envy of your dinner party.
Yeah. It's nice too if you have a bunch of scrap fabric too that's like an odd size.
Oh my gosh, yes. Because I can be a little bit of a fabric hoarder and I just okay. And yeah, I needed to clean up my fabrics. Okay, so here when I checked my seam just to go over and press, see that? I didn't sew straight enough, so you know, you can see that it didn't really sew together. But that's
Yeah.
because you can just go over it a little bit and that's it. Okay, so if you ever see any gaps like that in your project, it's a very easy fix. You just go ahead and go in and then you just sew right over it again where you think it's going to catch.
Right. And I probably missed this, but you already sewed the back side of your batting. You put just like a solid piece of fabric on it, or
So this is what ends up happening. So at the beginning, what we did is we took our solid piece of fabric and our batting and we adhered it together. So either using a lapel stick, a glue stick, whatever it was, and we just, you know, smoothed it over and that's what's keeping that in place. And as we're sewing, it also sews it. So
okay.
yeah. So as you can see, there's like the little lines. So yeah, so it's like a twofer, you know.
I guess you could almost use like heat and bond too, if you wanted on the bottom side.
Exactly. So, okay. All right, so no gaps anymore. That's great. Do, 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 do. Okay. So, we go this way. Perfect. And as you can see, like the lapel actually hurt, like adhering your solid fabric to the batting helps a lot because it just gets so slippery. You might not think it's slippery, but it's slippery. It shifts everywhere and it's like, well. Okay, so that's that one. Okay. All right, and I'm going to check again that everything's matched together. So the important part, just so I can rewind and tell you, is that you match the edge to the raw edge. That way you don't get any of those gaps like I got the last time. So I'm just going to go ahead and reposition my fabric and pin it in place so I don't have that problem again. Again, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, I'll do this side. Okay. Okay. Ready to go ahead and press again. Okay. And it looks like I just need a couple of pieces at the ends, which I have. So it's always good to have a little bit more of the strips than you were accounting for, because sometimes, you know, stuff happens. Okay, and I'm gonna finish off with this one over here too. Okay, great. Okay, let's pin. This one's a little tricky for me because my fabric sewed on a curve for some reason. So I have to kind of match it up in a way where it curves a little. Okay, perfect. And then this side, we're gonna just pin and then we'll straighten it out later. Let's see how I did. Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. No gaps. And now we're going to do this one and we're going to line it up as best as possible. Okay. Okay. All right, now let's press that all. Okay. So now this is what we end up with. We end up with one side of beautiful pattern and your other plain side. Okay. Now, in this step, you can choose to do one of two things. You can choose to trim some of your excess, not entirely, make it even, but you can, trim some of it off, which I think I'm going to do because I see a lot of jagged edges. And at the end of the day, it's going to help me when I do my decorative quilting part. Okay, so I have my ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't need these little pieces. I clearly need a new rotary cutter blade. It didn't go through. Let's try again. For those of you who use rotary cutters, it's always good to change them every couple projects or every like 4 projects. It keeps your blade nice and sharp, so when you are cutting through multiple layers, it actually cuts. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Just find what I think I don't need and then just go from there. Okay. And it looks like these pieces. There we go. Okay, so now I more or less evened out my table runner. Doesn't have as many jagged edges to it. But either way, we're going to straighten it out later before we bind it. Okay, so at this point, you can choose a decorative stitch of your liking. You can choose a zigzag stitch. You can use a straight stitch. Pretty much anything you want. Depends on your machine, depends on, what needle you have, all that good stuff. So different needles call for different, or different patterns call for different needles. My particular machine has an array of patterns, but I'm going to stick to a simple zigzag. Why? I don't know. I just like the zigzag a lot. So I went ahead and I just went to a standard zigzag. Nothing too tight or nothing too wide. My stitch is just going to go in and it's going to be a little decorative. Actually, no, I'm going to stick with a straight stitch now that I'm thinking about it. So I'm going to go back and change that. I don't know. I didn't feel like a zigzag stitch would be pleasant on my patterns. I think maybe funky patterns might call for a zigzag stitch. But anyway, enough of me. Okay, so we have our middle. Okay, this is our middle piece. All right. And if you marked it with a straight pin or with a chalk or something, awesome. If you didn't, just kind of, eyeball it. If you have an even number of, pieces on each side, then of course, that's the middle. But this is my middle. This is how okay. So now we're gonna go ahead and start doing the quilting part. Technically, this already is quilted because we already have our fabrics and our batting already sewed together. So this is technically quilted. Congratulations, you have already quilted. But again, if you want to give it a little more pizzazz, a little more something, you can go ahead and do an overlay of something a little different. I'm just going to use a straight stitch. So what I'm going to do is called chain stitching, and chain stitching basically is going to go like this. I'm going to go ahead and start doing a straight stitch or whatever stitch you choose, and go down. But instead of cutting my thread, I'm going to go ahead and pivot my fabric so I can go up again, and then pivot and then go down, and then pivot and go down. So essentially you're just going back and forth without ever having to cut your thread. So I'll show you how this goes. Let me see if I can get you a little bit more visual this way. Okay, once again, starting at my middle, and I'm gonna go like this, and I'm gonna say, this is where I want it. Okay, and we're gonna go and start. Okay, I thought it wasn't sewing. Okay. Okay, so you see right there, I stopped. So I'm just gonna lift up my presser foot pedal, and I'm just gonna pivot it. Okay, and hold on, sorry. I didn't stop where I wanted to stop. So you have to make sure that you stop at the end of your fabric. So at the very, very, very edge. That way, or you can do a little bit beyond that. That way you're able to drag your thread out. So I'll show you once again. So, okay, see that? So now I drag my thread. It's right here. And I'm gonna go ahead and choose my other point, and I'm gonna start again. Okay, so I'm going to drag it again. Oh, dragged it the other way. All right, and now I'm going to find my middle. Boom. So once I complete this one, I'm going to cut my thread and show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so we started in our middle, right? So we started in our middle, and then we, at the end of that, we went ahead and sewed a little bit more, and we dragged the thread. See this? This is leftover thread. So at the end of the project, you're just going to wind up with lots of little loops like this. And all you have to do is either cut them off or, you know, leave them, however you want to handle that. But that's essentially what chain stitching is. So you're basically creating a big chain of stitches throughout. When you start and then you drag it out a little bit, start again, drag it out a little bit, here's another chain, and then you kind of get the idea on that. But that's what I mean by chain stitching. So now I'm gonna start again where I left off, and we'll see. It doesn't matter if you It doesn't really matter if you start and stop and you cut your thread. It really doesn't matter. It's your choice how to do it. This is, however, a technique that a lot of quilters use, so they don't have to start and stop all the time cutting their thread. Just because it can get time consuming when you're doing large projects. So yeah, so we're just gonna go ahead and chain stitch until we get to the end, okay? Wonderful. So I have this side done, and now we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Okay, we found our middle right here. And just to help you, you can always just roll up your fabric. So when you are sewing and you're, moving and shifting it, you're able to manage it a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to start here. Okie dokie. So now we are done on our quilting part. So now you're gonna look at your back and you're gonna see that you have, you know, a nice straight pattern of your bucking, and you have, you know, all your stitches nicely and neatly in place. And then on the sides that we worked on, it's gonna look the same. Okay, see, beautiful stitches. Okay, wonderful. So now this part, I'm gonna push this guy away from me for a second. Oops. Oh, there we go, just to give myself more room. And what I'm gonna do right now is actually go ahead and straighten out all my edges so I know that everything is even, and that when I do put my binding on, it is going to, you know, all go in there. Okay, so go ahead and, I like to do it this way. I just fold it in the middle like this, and I just go ahead and try to straighten it out as best as possible. Okay, and again, having a sharp rotary blade helps a lot, but we'll see. Let's see what happens here. There we go. Okay, so right here, I took about a 1/4 inch off, and I did do it with me facing the backing with the, I guess, wrong side out, just because I think it gives me a better visual of what I should cut, as opposed to the other side where there's a lot of, you know, mixed matchy pieces together. So here at least I know that, oh, okay, there's some batting showing. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that. This works a lot better when you have a sharp rotary cutter, but scissors work well too, as you can see. Okay, so that's one side. And then the other side. Let's see. That looks about good. And then we're here. I can feel where you can feel it out. You can feel where your batting ends or where it starts. So yeah, so my batting's right in there, and I do want to catch my batting. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit more just so I can get that in there. So just remember that when you are making other projects, let's say you decide to make this a longer table runner, or you decide to make this a pot holder or whatever it is, just always give yourself enough fabric where you can take the pieces off, and it's going to end up in the length that you really want it to. For instance, my instructions said that I wanted it, you know, I wanted all my pieces cut to 13.5 inches, right? Well, that's because I knew that I was going to probably end up taking about 1 inch altogether. So at the end of the day, this is going to give me about 1 foot wide, a 12-inch wide runner. So here we are. Okay, everything's nice and neat now, as you can see. Okay, and now it's time to bind. So I am using a double fold bias tape. It's a quilt binding. You can use a thinner bias tape that would be like maybe the double fold, but I can't think of it right now. I don't know why, but it's still double fold, meaning that you have, you know, fold it this way and then fold it again in the middle. But it's a little bit thinner. I chose this one just because, I don't know, I wanted to be festive. And also you can go ahead and coordinate your colors to see what would go best. I chose this bright cherry, even though it doesn't really, yeah, I'll give you a little bit more light, even though it doesn't really match the red fabric in the quilting portion of my project. It does match a little bit with the little shimmery roses that I chose, if you can see them. See, so it matches a little bit. And then on the other side, you have these really bright colors. So I wanted to be able to maybe coordinate both and not, you know, not make one side better than the other. So, you know, we'll see how it looks. But, okay, so to go ahead and glaze your binding, the simplest way to do it is, okay, the simplest way to do it is to open it, okay, down the middle, and then you're gonna go ahead and kind of sandwich your project in there, like so, okay? And you're gonna go do that throughout your project. So I'm gonna go ahead, always pin in place. If you don't wanna pin in place, you can use binder clips. So I use teeny tiny binder clips to help me along to keep everything in place. But you can use pins too, whatever you wanna use is fine. I'm gonna use, I don't think I have a lot of binder clips on me. They always get, you know, stuck somewhere. They're like paper clips. You wind up buying a box of paper clips and then it's like, where'd they all go? The same thing. Okay, when you get to the corner, simply what you're gonna do is you're gonna hold with one hand, hold with the other, and see how there's like this little, like a little bulge right there? You're just gonna go ahead and fold it. Okay, and you're gonna fold it towards one way. It doesn't matter which way you fold it towards, just fold it in and pin it or binder clip it in place. Okay, all right, and that's gonna give you a nice corner. Okay, looks like I'm gonna need to use my pins. Okay. When I use straight pins, I like to put them down because when I'm sewing this way, right? I can just take out the pin and I'm not gonna prick myself. That's one thing I really don't like about sewing is that it's kind of hazardous. If you're not careful, you can just hurt yourself pretty badly. And, you know, I try to avoid that as best as possible. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and use a pin here too, just because I need that binder clip. And I'm gonna probably need this binder clip too. And this one too. Okay. All right, and we're gonna go again to our corner. And I'm gonna hold with one hand. With the other, you're gonna sandwich in the fabric, and then you're going to fold those pieces in and binder clip it. Okay. Great. I'm gonna pin. All right. And you know what's awesome about this project too? You can gift it. I love projects that you can gift. If you haven't noticed that in all my tutorials, I feel like I'm like, you can give this away because you can. Nothing says I love you more like a handmade gift. That's what I say. So as cheesy as that might seem, but it's true. I feel like people treasure your gifts more if you've made it. And it shows that you put in the time and the effort and the dedication into it. It's kind of like when grandmas make baby blankets for their grandchildren. It's like it's a treasured thing, it's something beautiful. So yeah. You could always make custom fabric and then put people's faces on it, or their dog or their pet, whomever. All right, so we're holding in place. We're sandwiching on the other side, and then we're just gonna pinch that in. And binder clip it in place. I like the binder clips a lot for when you do the corners. I just think it catches everything a little bit better. Perfect. Okay, and then when you get to the end, you're just going to do the same thing. You're going to go in and whoops, going to clip it in place. Come on. This one's giving me grief. Okay. Clip it in place, and then I'm going to just cut my excess off right here. Okay. And then this portion, you can just tuck in that little tail that I just cut. See that? I'm just going to tuck it in. And binder clip it in place. If I have another one, I have a big one. Okay. Binder clip it in place, and then that should be where it all ends. So we are going to start sewing. Straight stitch is fine. What I like to say is to, again, stay kind of like a 1/4 inch allowance too on this. Because what you want to do is when you are doing binding, you want to stay close to the edge, but not too close, just because you run the risk of not catching the other side, and then you have to go over it again. So I would say about a 1/4 inch is fine. And then if you want to go over it again on a closer, you could just make that type of little pattern. I'll show you how to. Okay, I would like to start where I started. So come here, big guy. Oh, he's happy. All right. So I'm going to start here, but I'm going to start at the one that I just folded in, not at the corner, just a little piece I folded in. I think that's going to be a little bit easier for me to manage. Okay. All right. Again, be careful not to prick yourself. Tuck those needles in. Take them out as you go if you'd like. And then let's get started. So right there. One thing that I should tell you is that you can sew through the straight pins, these guys. However, I wouldn't recommend doing it on a high speed. They can break your needle, your sewing needle, your straight pin. It can fly out into your eye. Please don't do that. Just, as you go, start taking them out, and you should be pretty safe. Okay, straight pin. Okay. Now, if taking off the straight pin makes you nervous because, oh, you know, I'm gonna mess up my project, I wouldn't think about that too much. Just get as close as you can to the needle without going over it. If you're going at high speed, if you're going at a normal speed, it's fine. You know, they could fit through, but they can break your needles. So, and in turn, it'll mess up your mechanism, and then you're gonna have to take your sewing machine to the sewing machine doctor, and we just don't want that. Take care of your machine. Okay, so we're getting to a binder clip. What you want to do is take your binder clip off, okay? And you want to just secure with your finger right there in a corner away from the needle, not straight under the needle because you might get your finger caught. And just, you know, ever so gently go in there. So again, we're sticking to a 1/4 inch allowance. So once you get to that little piece and you think that you got all of your, you know, corners in there, just stop, lift your presser foot. Sorry, I blinked out for a second. Your foot pedal, presser foot, however you want to call it. Sorry, I'm just blanking out a lot today. And pivot or turn your fabric. That way you don't have to, you know, cut your thread and start over. Boom, you put it back down and you start. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Take off my binder clip, hold it in place a little bit. Okay, lift my presser foot. Okay. Whoops. Okay, let's take that out. Okay, take this out. Okay, so I sewed a little bit too far, but what I can do is back stitch. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and turn my fabric. Got to my binder clip. I'm gonna hold that. Oh, okay. Now we're done. Now the last stitch, I'm going to back stitch just to secure that puppy in place, and we are done. We're just going to check to see that we got everything that we needed. We did. I secured all of my binding on each side. Now, what I was saying in regards to going back and doing like a second, you know, quote unquote decorative stitch is basically going in a little bit closer. Like for instance, you see this. This is a lot left over. So some people might not like that. So you could just go in a little bit closer to the edge with a straight stitch and just do that. For me, it doesn't really make a difference. You know, I kind of like the rustic, you know, feel, handmade feel to it. But yeah, you can go in and you know, tack that a little bit closer to your project. And, you know, it'll look like a nice decorative double line. But yeah, that's it. Now, here's the thing. After looking over at my project, look at how beautiful that is, I noticed that I have a little gap here, okay? And that sometimes can happen. So this happened because I probably did not sew far enough from the raw edges of my fabric. So it left that gap. So what you can do at this point, since you're already, you know, done with it, you can just use some fabric glue and ever so gently, you know, just glue it in there, and it's going to be like nothing ever happened. So, you know, that would be my suggestion. Don't go crazy trying to fix it or trying to sew over it. The fabric glue is going to go definitely on there. And, you know, once you let it dry, it'll be like nothing happened. Okay, and that is our project. That is our table runner. Now, again, you can make it longer, you can make it shorter, you can make anything you want out of this. This technique is great for pretty much anything. Okay. Any questions? Anything? Anybody want to show us their project? That'd be great. I love seeing projects.
If anyone wants to show their project, you can just either raise your hand or you could say something in the chat and we could bring you on camera. Or if you're still working on it, you could always email me later to show it off.
Yeah, I love seeing the finished projects. I think it's very satisfying for me as an instructor. Yay! Amber, I think you're gonna have to make one for yourself.
I know, I would love to.
Yeah.
Great.
So
I'm kind of doing everything this year. The Grinch. I don't know.
oh,
I just watched the Dr. Seuss version of The Grinch and it was a lot of fun. Okay, we do have a question. If you don't have the binding tape, how would you finish it?
okay, you could do one of two things. You can make your own binding tape. It's like pretty easy to do. I'd have to show you another tutorial on that, but essentially what the binding tape is just fabric that's been pressed, you know, in a way where it's going to create like a strip and you can, you know, put your fabric in the middle of it. It's very simple to do. There's tutorials out there. I can make one for you guys too. So that's an option, especially if you want to have, you know, maybe the same fabric go along. But other than that, I would just say, you know, any other type of leftover binding from like an old blanket or anything like that would work well. What else? What else can I say? If you had enough fabric left over before doing the binding, you might be able to just tuck it in a way where your bra edges would probably get tucked in, and then you can just sew all of that closed, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Or you could just go buy binding. It's not very expensive. It comes in little packets like this. And, you know, they're probably like $4 or $3, not even, like $3 maybe. Or
I
like,
usually think they're a couple bucks, yeah. Or if you're gonna make a lot of things, you can buy rolls of it too.
yes.
So that's a
Mhm.
little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
But most places have it, like Walmart, Joann's, and like Maria said, it's just around $2. But I guess you could need a couple packages to go around. So you probably need 2 for this project.
Not really. So for this project, so to determine binding, if you're ever gonna, you know, do this in another size, to determine binding, you basically want to measure the final size of your project, so the width and the length of it, and you're gonna add those 4 sides, okay? So you're gonna say, let's say this is 10, 20, 10. So we're gonna say 10, 30, 40, 50, 60. So it's gonna be 60 inches all around. And then you're gonna wanna add about maybe 10 inches for allowance. And that's basically how you determine how much binding you need for your project. Okay. And then you can see, like in the package, it'll say, oh, it's, you know, I don't know, 3 yards. And then you can just say, okay, 3 yards is how many inches? So 36 inches to a yard, and then you would just do the math on there. And that would be it. So that's how you determine how much binding you would need for your project. And of course, if you're making like a pot holder, and you know they have the little loops, you can account for the little loop too. But yeah, so basically you just add the inches on all the 4 sides, and then you give yourself about 10 inches extra. Okay.
Definitely need to do some math when you are sewing, so it's good to have those skills.
Yeah, and a calculator in here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Maybe Google, so you can
Well,
convert your yards to
yeah.
inches.
We'll have to start saying that added a calculator to the materials list.
I'm
So
gonna have to, yeah. But yeah, so those are basically your options. But yeah, if you have like a lot of fabric you want to get rid of and you want to turn it into binding, you can do that. That's totally something you can do.
okay, well, great question and really good ideas, explanations. So thank you for that. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any more questions.
Okay.
So I'll just remind everybody that this will be recorded and you can view it on mcpl.tv, which is our shortcut to our YouTube station. So head over there if you need to rewatch, or in a couple months from now you decide to do a different one, you could always go back to this video. So that's really
An Easter one. Ooh, an Easter one or a spring one. I'm thinking ahead.
yeah.